Trauma Therapist Podcast, episode 335. Welcome to the Trauma Therapist Podcast. My name is Guy McPherson. My mission is to raise the awareness of trauma and to help support and inspire new trauma workers through this podcast and my membership community, Trauma Therapist 2.0. Thanks so much for joining me today, and here we go. All right, guys, welcome back to the Trauma Therapist Podcast. I'm very excited to have today as my guest, Kate Fylan. Kate, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are welcome. So Kate has over 17 years experience working with children and families in the areas of trauma, child protection, and attachment and parenting. She's an accredited mental health social worker through the Australian Association of Social Workers, as well as a play therapist, and has worked internationally and locally for both government and non-government agencies. Kate is an approved counselor with Victims Services NSW and has worked extensively with victims of crime and brings trauma attachment and neurobiological framework to her work. All right, Kate, obviously just a little bit about you, but share with our listeners where you're from and where you're calling from, and then let's do it.
Okay, cool. Well, today I'm calling from early morning Sydney, Australia. I do have a bit of an accent, so I am Irish originally. Moved here almost 12 years ago.
Wow.
So grew up in kind of rural country Ireland, studied social work in Trinity College Dublin, and worked as a statutory social worker in Dublin's inner city and also in Drogheda, which is a rural urban setting on the East Coast. Doing statutory child protection, risk assessments, viability of restoration, removal, hopefully restoration, forensic assessment, the usual kind of statutory stuff.
Okay.
Just felt there wasn't enough options for ongoing work, particularly with children, and that's when I did my play therapy training through Play Therapy International.
Okay, hang on. Let me stop you right there. We're going to get into that, and I want to kind of savor that journey. But let's start out, Kate, with a quote, a mantra, a sentence, whatever. What do you have to share with our listeners?
Well, today my quote is to clear off the lens and take a fresh view is to thrive. And it's, I should have practiced saying the word. It's the author, Schiraldi. And for me, that was, it hit me recently when I was writing a piece around parenting after violence. And also for me as a parent, I now have 3 young children, that your perspective, it doesn't change your experience, but it can help you kind of thrive within that experience about, once your lens is cleared, whether you do it yourself or someone scaffolds you to do it, that it can give you, a freshness to go on, or a freshness to change your journey.
Okay, so just once more, say that quote again, and the author.
Yeah, it's to clear off the lens and take a fresh look is to thrive.
Okay, is to thrive. Okay.
Yeah.
And you said Schiraldi?
Yeah, do you want me to spell it? Would
Sure,
that be?
Sure.
Yeah, Schiraldi.
Got it. Okay, so why that quote? Let's kind of unpack that a little more. To take off the lens and take a fresh view is to thrive. Why that?
Yeah, to clean off the lens. Yeah. I think for me it clicked and made sense with thinking about when you're driving in your car and your windscreen is all covered in kind of dust and dirt, and when you've been in the outback in Australia, if you use the cleaner and then the wipers and clean it, like that's your scaffolding, that's your support around you. Your windscreen is still the same, but you've cleaned off. And you can see clearer, you can see more around you, if that makes sense. It provides you with the capacity for another view on what your experience would be.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's kind of talk more about how you got into this, and I would like to maybe unpack a little bit more about what that quote looks like when you were actually working with someone and so forth. But how did you get to this spot where this is what you're focusing on? This is your specialization, and tell us that story.
Yeah, I kind of seem to have been one of those teenagers that just kind of knew that this is where I wanted to go into social work. My parents were foster parents for 30-something years, and were fostering before I was born. And I suspect that is probably where that influence came, or that, not from them, but just it was more of a kind of an innate thing in me that I knew that I wanted to do social work, got the course that I wanted to do, started studying, did placements every year in the 4 years that we did, and I did my child protection placement as my last one, and knew that this was what I wanted to do, and went straight into
What about social work?
I think I liked all aspects of it. I enjoy law. That's part of it. I enjoy that you work with your community and you support the person in your community. Mm-hmm. And then I like social work theory and practice in itself around that enabling, that human rights, that part of it. But also it allows you to do all that therapeutic stuff as well, that the counselling, the one-to-one is all, like, for me it was the package that allowed me to meet people's needs at so many different levels.
Okay. And then how did things unfold for you? So give us a little kind of step-by-step of the educational process for those of us who might not be familiar with how it differs from, the States or wherever. With the progression and how this specialization in trauma began to blossom, if you will.
Yeah, so I went straight from school, I think you guys would call it high school, into university and did a 4-year degree / professional qualification in social work. And then once you finish, so at 22, I came out very fresh-faced, full of, passion and hope and... maybe a bit of naivety into quite a ravaged drug area in Dublin's inner city, and started working in a team there that was quite an experienced team leader, and he was quite a mentor to me in my early years. Saw some quite confronting stuff, and I do like to think that we made some changes and improved some children's lives, and that really started my journey in child protection, and kind of consolidated that this is where I want to be. This is
So what about that first experience there in Dublin? Can you give us a little more insight into what kind of that was like, what that inspired in you? You talked about the naivete and so forth. What did that look like?
Yeah, I think that looked quite a lot with parents telling me that I was far too young to be doing this work, and that I had no idea what I was doing, and being able to separate that. Yes, I was really, really young, and I looked even younger as well. I think I was told several times I looked about 15, and separating it from, this is quite confronting for them. They're at the the pointy end of possibly losing their children, and needing to build a relationship with them that moved past the initial of how they saw me, because in order for them to make their children safe, or me to help them make their children safe, we needed to build a relationship. And me being able to work beyond and accept that, yes, I am just out of uni. Yes, I am quite, I'm putting theories into practice that I haven't done before, and I'm also learning new stuff. But that's my stuff, and needing to be able to connect and build a bridge with them so we can see a different journey. We can see, enable a different process for their children.
Mm-hmm. And so when I don't know if you can, if you can kind of draw out a specific instance of that, but here you are, fresh-faced, looking young, obviously, and you're saying looking even younger. How did you respond, and how did you feel when those confrontations or challenges kind of presented themselves?
I think, being completely honest, trembling inside.
Yeah.
At times, people can be quite aggressive when it comes to, the point of removing your children. I think for me, just putting that space in beside that, if I rally up against them saying to me that you're too young and you don't know what you're doing, kind of acknowledging that and then trying to build. So saying to them, well, how can we make this work? You've got to work with me if your children have any possibility of remaining with you or being returned to you. How do we make this work? What is it that we can use from my experience and yours to build this so that we can, so we can work out what's the safest way? How do we minimize your drug use? How do we, whatever the issue was that was there.
That sounds, those instances are no joke, right? They're pretty intense. Yeah. And for a lot of people, they'd be like, I don't want to do that. I want to help people, but not like that. But yet you kind of moved through that. What was it about that circumstance or that environment? And also, what was it about yourself that, you were like, this is it. Let's do it. Game on. I'm going to move forward with this. What was that?
Yeah, definitely my mentor that was there, and then I had a subsequent great mentor in Australia as well when we came here. That support to know that the experience of being vulnerable in your own practice, if that makes sense. So knowing that if you've got somebody that you can go to and say, oh, wow, that was really, full on, or I really felt, vulnerable, or I don't know if I did a good job there, having that space to go to then kind of dissect that and then reflect on what you did and also learn from what you need to do. And for me, having that in my supervision allowed me then to kind of reflect that this is maybe what's going on for parents and children in that situation as well, that if you can be that person that is still really clear on their role and still really clear on what they need to do, and transparent about that you can then be that person that allows them to, we all know what their vulnerability is. It's in the report. It's in what the concern is. But if we're able to get to a point where they can sit with that, well, then we can perhaps build the scaffolding up and rebuild that family that's inside there.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So this idea of vulnerability, it sounds like you were fortunate enough to kind of be working with that and recognizing that early on through the mentors.
Look, I think my first mentor, he didn't talk about it as such. And then my second one here, it was, it was more kind of, she was able to, use that language. But I think for him, he set up that space of, you've got this. When you don't, come and we can work it out and look at what you've done, and you'll be surprised how well you did in when you think you didn't, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So that was that experience. What happened next? How did things unfold?
Well, then we travelled for a little while and then came back to Ireland, and that's when, I really realised that there's no kind of after support in statutory child protection. So I continued to do all the forensic work and the statutory work, and then studied and really started doing through the play therapy one-on-one work with children. And that just ignited a different aspect that where you can build those long-term relationships and really see how children can thrive when there is, stability and consistency, and this safe space to start to unpack what's happened to them. And pretty much when I was finished, we packed up and came to Australia.
So the play therapy, how did that come on board?
That was a part-time postgrad course through, it was APAC at the time, a UK-based play therapy organisation, and the University of Canterbury through the UK as well. And they came to Ireland and did it part-time. And then my team was pretty supportive of having somebody that could do that more long-term work with children. And started doing it again, vulnerability and, naivety when you take on a new course. But it for me, it kind of consolidated the capacity to do assessments and the more kind of parenting stuff, to be able to then offer the children a space for them to process either having been removed and placed in care or staying in families where, there was intense parenting and safety work going on. And that's usually done with the parents, and this allowed them to, have their voice and to have their own space to work through what it is their process.
Mm-hmm. For those who aren't, really well acquainted with the intricacies of play therapy, how would you describe that?
I would describe it as that play is children's words and allowing them the tools to express and verbalise what otherwise they mightn't have the words to do is through play. So it is a whole theory and framework within itself, and it's powerful to see when children are given the tools that they need to process their own experience in their own world and their own safe space, as opposed to expecting them to be able to to meet that expression verbally.
Kate, you kind of alluded to it earlier on in the conversation when you said your parents had been foster parents for many years before you were born, which was one of the reasons that kind of maybe got you into this field. But you've worked in some pretty kind of intense situations and a variety of situations too. But what is it about you, do you feel that allows you and inspires you to do this work?
It's a really good question, and one that I kind of reflect on. It comes up every so often when you do hit those difficult cases again and go, oh my goodness, what am I doing? It's kind of hard to. I kind of feel that it was a journey that I was given, that it happened. I don't remember a moment where I didn't know that this is what I was going to do. And I think through my training, and whether it's something about myself, it's all clicked and given me the capacity to connect with people who are at their most vulnerable, or, society looks on them as, because of what they've done to their children, society looks on them as, kind of being irreparable or kind of throw away a key aspect. And I don't step away from what they've done. We've got to, accept responsibility and look at that and where can we go with this. And your children have to be safe. There's no other bottom line than that. But not being able to give them and see that there is hope in everybody. There's hope in every situation. And I think maybe that might be what it might be about, that I can see that hope despite, knowing and having to work with quite, abuses that have happened, and being transparent about that. Yeah, but I think it's the hope, the capacity to see hope in a situation and in people.
It also sounds like you kind of lead with seeing the human, right? Seeing the humanity in the person, and which is really powerful. Despite the fact that, from a very early age, you knew this is what you wanted to do, when you got out of school, was that sense as palpable? Was that sense of, seeing the humanity and leading with hope, was that there, or did that have to kind of develop, and did you have to cultivate that?
Yeah, definitely. I think the naivety came out from uni, and quickly kind of realised that this is bigger than what I thought it was going to be. And I think there was a point possibly around my mid-20s, so I'd probably been working for about 4 or 5 years, where there kind of became, and it was kind of a moment of being comfortable in my own skin, in my own practice. So having those conversations with parents around, the crimes at times and abuses that have occurred, and also with children as well, being able to sit and hold their experience for them and scaffold it. And when those moments of, a threat to my personal safety came up, that sitting comfortably knowing that, okay, this isn't about me, this is about their vulnerability, their they're like a tiger is surrounded by all these, statutory services place, and it's not about my self, it's about connecting with them, and that moment of being comfortable going, okay, I've got the experience, I've got the knowledge, I can sit with knowing where to go with this, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Let me ask you about kind of an early clinical error. I mean, you've kind of touched upon that, I think, throughout, but can you dial it and get specific and maybe tell us a story of what that looked like when you were just starting out?
Yeah, look, I made heaps when I started out, some really big safety ones where you go on home visits and you do it quickly on the way back to the office and nobody knows you're there, and then it ends up being, a confrontation, and you think, oh my goodness, I should have just rang into the office and told them where I was going. But I think for me, the one that I probably most reflect on was when we came to Australia, and I worked in a child protection unit, which we didn't have in Ireland. So they're units in hospitals where any child that has a child protection injury presents there, and there's a paediatrician and a social worker that do a forensic assessment, and then there's a capacity for ongoing therapy afterwards. And it was young parents. They were 19, 20, and the baby was 19 days old and had presented with quite horrendous injuries, quite a few broken bones, and they had changed their story quite a bit as to how it had happened. They were obviously the ones that were caring for the child at the time, so the point was the child was already in care, and there was a really big meeting around where, what was going to happen and how they were, to try and find out exactly, give the opportunities, the parent the opportunity to tell what had happened, because the story wasn't matching the injuries. And I suppose my biggest regret was I had just started again, perhaps feeling that I wish I'd been more comfortable in my skin at that point. There was easily 10, 12 professionals across different agencies in that room, and these young parents. And when I reflect on it, nobody had kind of spelt it out to them what the risk was, that at the moment we were sitting with a child with injuries and several different explanations that didn't fit the injuries that the child had, and nobody had spelt it out to them. But when I reflect on it, I kind of wish I'd sat there and said to them, had a conversation with them that was empathic, still within the risks of safety around that. If we know what happened, it gives us something to work with. When we don't know what happened, it places added risk because it appears that you're not able to accept responsibility, and we don't have a baseline to go from to know, what was it that happened before the injuries, where were you up to, what supports do you need, and that still, kind of sits with me when I reflect on my practice, that was a moment that could have, changed for them and their child's journey, whereas there was no other option but to present to the court that this child couldn't go home based on that the parents weren't, forthcoming or working with the services. And looking back on their position, they would have been too quite really, really scared, just out of childhood themselves, so to speak, people. And for me, that's been kind of a marker around conversations that you can, there's always, I want to always have that feeling that I've been transparent and given the opportunity to my clients or the children that I work with, that they've had the conversation's been expanded to the point that it can expand to.
That sounds like a really hard lesson to learn. And, really hard lesson to learn the hard way, too.
Yeah.
What do you say, or what would you say? A lot of the listeners of this podcast are, kind of just starting out on their trauma-informed journey. Maybe some are therapists or counselors or social workers with experience, yet don't really have, or are just starting out on their trauma-informed journey. What do you say to them, Kate? How would you maybe advise them or guide them to kind of sink their teeth into this journey? What would you say are some of the things that they maybe should do in your opinion?
Yeah. I think for me, on the reflection at those points where, on my journey, my professional journey, like that of being comfortable in my own skin as a practitioner, as a social worker and a play therapist, that knowing that I didn't know everything, and knowing that your theory and knowledge and frameworks, they're your scaffolding around you, but you're still kind of building inside. And today I still am. I don't know everything about that person sitting in front of me, and to have an openness to knowing that it's about them, it's not about you. You've got to provide the space for them to build a connection so that they can work on whatever it is that they need to work on through you. But having that openness or that curiosity to know that when they rally up against you, it's really about what's going on for them, that they're in a situation where I suppose how you named it, see the human in them, that it isn't necessarily a reflection on you, that if you have an openness and a curiosity about their experience, you will build a connection with them that allows them to tell you their story while you still sit in your role of whether it's statutory child protection or play therapist, and knowing and communicating what are the restraints of your role. But I think that openness and that curiosity, that even now when, I work with ethnic groups, understanding how I don't understand, I don't know, I haven't experienced what their, cultures around parenting or around raising children. It doesn't change my safety basis of what children need and what safety is. But if I'm curious around, what's your community's approach to raising children, it gives me a capacity to demonstrate to them that I want to experience it or see their perspective, and listen to them. I think that would probably be my biggest learning across my and ongoing learning in relation to connecting with people.
Awesome, thank you. One thing you mentioned, being comfortable in your own skin. I mean, obviously, I can get an idea of what that might mean or does mean, but for me, within this context, say more about that. Yeah,
that learning with that young parents, to know that if there's something, that not to leave something unsaid, so to give, to reflect in myself when I'm working with people, is there anything else that I need to say today? Is there anything else that I need to scaffold around giving them the opportunity to start to say, and seeing and acknowledging, validating people's vulnerability. With trauma now where I work, it's often shame. So holding their shame and giving them the opportunity to name what it is, scaffold them. So I think being curiosity about it, I wonder, is this what's going on? I wonder, is this maybe what you're feeling? So giving them the capacity to name what it is, but also holding it for them. Because I find when people walk away with things not being named, well, then the shame or that feeling can grow inside, and for them not to have had the opportunity to process that can impact their journey.
Awesome. All right, Kate, how about a go-to book recommendation, whether trauma related or not? What do you have for us?
I was going to. I don't get much opportunity to read, given that I have 3 very young children. But this was read in my peer group as well. It's a novel. Eleanor Oliphant Is Going to Be Okay. And for me, it's written about a girl that's been in care and through the care system, and she's an adult now. And my friend saying to me, "Oh, wow, that girl, you don't know how the story unfolds until that's the case." But how it was written really depicted an adult's experience of being a child through that system, but also there was hope in it. So that's what kind of pulled me to it, that you're then able to, you people that read it can really see that there can be a lot going on for another person, and they still kind of semi-look okay, might have a few quirks, but realising that, what people present on the front doesn't mean what's necessarily going on inside.
So Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine, a novel by Gail Honeyman.
Yes.
Okay, and I will have that linked up here at the show notes page at the traumatherapist podcast.com. Kate, what is the best way for people to get in contact with you?
Probably through LinkedIn or my email, katecarrowhouse@gmail.com.
Okay.
Is the best one.
Awesome. I will have that linked up here at the show notes page. Kate, I want to thank you, man. I really enjoyed talking to you. I get this sense of you've learned so much from your experiences, and I can really feel that coming through, that's the sense I'm getting, and I really enjoyed this conversation. So I want to thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
Oh, and thank you so much. I'm totally humbled to have been part of it and to have got to spoken to you in person. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, Kate, take care.
Thank you.
CPTSDfoundation.org provides daily recovery support, live group calls, 365 days a year. All calls are led by trauma-informed advocates, authors, and highly respected practitioners in the field of trauma recovery. CPTSDfoundation.org helps survivors connect with others who've walked through the fire of abuse and are on a path toward healing. After working with thousands of survivors all around the world, they know how to help you escape the shame of abuse by connecting with like-minded individuals so you can finally feel like healing is possible. Stop isolating between therapy appointments. Getting re-traumatized with your current strategy is no longer necessary. Reach out to CPTSD Foundation today and discover the life-changing, daily, trauma-informed peer support you've been waiting for. That's CPTSDfoundation.org. All right, guys, this episode is sponsored by Brighter Vision. Are you looking to grow your practice this year? If so, you have to check out Brighter Vision. As the worldwide leaders of therapist website design, Brighter Vision has helped thousands of private practices create a professional online brand that attracts the type of clients you love working with. With Brighter Vision, you get a website that looks like you spent thousands of dollars, but it only costs less than $2 per day. And it's not some cookie cutter template that you'll spend hours trying to put together. Instead, when you sign up with Brighter Vision, you have a team of designers who custom build you a website that's unique to you and your practice, with the goal of filling your calendar with the types of clients you do your best work with. And the best part, Brighter Vision is having their biggest sale of the year right now. When you sign up anytime in January, you can discount your entire first year with Brighter Vision down to only $49 a month. That's a savings of $120 from their standard pricing. Head on over to brightervision.com/guy to learn more. brightervision.com/guy. Once again, head on over to brightervision.com/guy to get the discount of the year.